children of all ages. Well done. That was a good way to finish that there. That's, I think, what they say at the circus.
Right, yeah, that's what I was referencing.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages.
When's the last time you went to the circus?
I think I was like 8 years old. There's a
Sounds
picture.
about right.
There's a picture of me. They would sit you there's like a bear.
Okay.
And there's like
Alive?
a piece of there's like a piece of plexiglass between
Okay.
you and the bear.
Okay.
And I was wearing like a shirt with some sort of animal on it. And in the picture that's at my aunt's house right now, the bear is just like locked into whatever animal was on my shirt.
You want to eat it?
Yeah. So if that bear was probably horribly mistreated, and so that's sad. But yeah, shout out to the circuses.
Speaking of horribly mistreated bears, Caleb Williams got that guy in offensive line.
Anyway,
let's get back to the local content here, Devin. We got a lot to talk to. Sorry, I could not help myself.
That was good.
But no, for real, talking about football, talking about some major rumors, and it seems like these have been building up the last few years, but now some serious rumors with NDSU and a potential big move.
Right, and so the Mountain West Conference, which was kind of every Bison fan, when you asked their kind of ideal landing spot, well, a lot of them, their ideal landing spot would probably be the Big Ten.
Yeah,
but like, a mix of realistic plus like an ideal situation was the Mountain West, and that was before the Mountain West obviously got raided by the new Pac-12. So the new Pac-12 came in and they took away Fresno State, Colorado State, Boise State, San Diego State, Utah State. And so with those guys leaving, the Mountain West needed to kind of rebuild. And they took a pretty interesting route to doing that. They added Hawaii as a full-time member. Hawaii was football only. They added UTEP, which was a very interesting move. In my brain, I assumed that they would be trying to raid the top level of the FCS. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen for quite some time. They tried to keep it at that FBS level, and where they were looking was at the MAC. They tried to drag the MAC into this with Northern Illinois.
I don't know if you can say, but I will say NDSU would roll the MAC. They would beat the entire conference, and it wouldn't be close. They would leave a trail of blood.
Oh, that's a little intense. Me personally would love to see NDSU in the MAC. I think it would be very fun to
I think
covering
NIU would give them a really tough fight.
NIU games on a Tuesday, that'd be awesome. But no, so the Mountain West was considering adding Northern Illinois as a football-only member, just to try to get those numbers up. They added Grand Canyon as a basketball-only member, that kind of thing. And so apparently that just soured. Northern Illinois actually turned them down, NIU did. And so then it was reported by Brett McMurphy of the Action Network yesterday that with that being not going to happen, they turned their focus to North Dakota State. He specifically mentioned North Dakota State as the target for the Mountain West Conference.
Specifically, so it's not.
He said eyeing FCS, considering was the word there, and I want to make sure that I have it clear. FCS powered North Dakota State. And so I reached out to the university. We got a statement on it yesterday. Matt Larson basically saying that they're going to continue to they're continuing to oversee the idea of going to that level, going to the FBS level. And then all he said was that they haven't received an invite yet. That's what he said. At this point, North Dakota State has not received an invitation to join an FBS conference yet, which they have to do. They have to get that invite. And there's a ton of rumors out there, and I kind of want to use this to kind of expel that right now. They do not need a bigger stadium to go up to the FBS level.
No.
Especially now with the FCS teams that have jumped up around North Dakota State. I think they would average like 4th or 5th in attendance in Mountain West right now.
I've been to NIU.
Right.
You know. Like
they're an FBS team.
Yeah, and the Fargo Dome is substantially
right.
It just seems like it would fit more people. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like, come on.
They don't need a new stadium. They don't need a bigger stadium. They are willing to pay that price. I think NDSU is a few phone calls away from having the price paid, which is a $5 million fee now. The NCAA bumped that up just to kind of try to slow down. So many teams were bailing from the FCS level. This was just last season. And so they bumped that price up to $5 million. So it's a big price tag to move up to the FBS level now. It's kind of a deterrent. It seems that way anyway. But I think that $5 million could be grabbed by people who are interested in seeing North Dakota State move up pretty quickly.
And I think the NDSU gets a return on that investment eventually.
Eventually. And you look at the numbers for profitability between the lowest level FBS team and the highest level FCS team. They're really comparable. So it's really not like that big of a leap. And so there's a ton of myths for like saying that it wouldn't work, but it really would. There is interest within North Dakota State athletics. There is interest within the Mountain West. Really, the big thing that Brett McMurphy brought up in his initial report was there's concern that there's going to be some pushback from the power conferences, some of their commissioners. He specifically named the Big Ten commissioner and the SEC commissioner, basically saying we don't want to bring any more of these FCS programs in. And so, pulling up a good example of a team that has moved up and had some success, JMU. Of course, their coach went to Indiana, and that kind of halted their early Sun Belt dynasty a little bit.
But they're 6-2.
Right.
And last year, did they lose?
They lost one game in the regular season, I believe.
Okay.
But they weren't allowed to go to the bowl game because I think they did actually get in because they needed more. There were so many bowls.
But you look like NDSU beat James Madison in their final game as being an FCS team.
Yep.
NDSU lost. They were within a play of a Colorado team that is in the upper echelon.
Colorado's bowl eligible.
Yeah. Which
was Deion Sanders' that's the main goal that he brought up all the time, just to get the team bowl eligible. That's like what the idea of success was for a team at that level, at a Power 4 now conference. And so, I mean, I certainly, as an outsider looking in, of course, I didn't grow up here. I don't have the long-standing fandom of this team to kind of deter me one way or the other. But as somebody who covers this team, an FBS move is very intriguing to me. So what the Mountain West would look like now while you have it pulled up. So if, say, and the earliest it could be done is 2026. So say that happens. The conference would consist of UNLV.
Let me show this to the people what we're looking at here.
Now, this is I'll just say it for football. The football conference, if NDSU were to go there in 2026, it would consist of UNLV, San Jose State, Hawaii, very fun, New Mexico, Wyoming, UTEP, Nevada, Air Force, and North Dakota State. How fun of a conference is that? And then you look at some of the bowl games that the Mountain West is tied into. The Arizona Bowl is one of my favorite examples of that one. There's a lot of fun.
You know who would love the Arizona Bowl? The people of Fargo.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they love going to Frisco. They get the built-in trip to Frisco almost every year.
I want to point this out because Bobby mentioned it too as our favorite presence in the newsroom, Bobby Fallett. He goes, how funny would it be if they go to the Frisco Bowl? And I'm like, that would be very funny, actually. So they just can't escape Frisco no matter what.
Yeah.
But no, and again, I'm not saying that it's a done deal that North Dakota State's going to the Mountain West. It's definitely going to happen. A lot of things have to happen still. The dominoes have to fall. But there's interest from two different camps that has at least been reported. And these are all just rumors.
Well, this is also the first time that, because we've heard the rumors and we've both had people ask us.
Right.
And when people have asked me in years past, I say, yeah, we'll see. But this is the first time something felt tangible.
Well, NDSU being outright mentioned.
Mentioned in awaiting an offer is where they are.
Right, and so I'm excited to see what happens here, and we don't know when this could all transpire because the earliest NDSU could join this conference is 2026. And so we might not have any kind of movement before the end of the regular season.
And it
could happen next week. It could happen at the end of the regular season.
There's thoughts going crazy in my head right now, and I'm reeling them in because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But there's so many other questions that opens up, and just questions for another day. I feel like that's all we have to say for now because we don't want to say any more than what we don't know. Is there anything else we can say?
Nothing yet. And there's, of course, there's going to be just, rumors and thoughts going around constantly about what could happen and where we might go. But that's going to have to wait until anything more tangible comes out. And I was proud of how I ended my segment on this in my sportscast last night. I said, we won't know how serious the Mountain West is considering the Bison until that invitation is received.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Whether it's received or not, that's when we'll know how serious these talks are right now.
Yeah, because you can say, I'm thinking about inviting Devin to my birthday party.
Right.
But it might just be me and Bobby
well,
having 8 pounds of chili to ourselves.
I would hope that you would invite me.
Well, I did.
Oh, okay.
You were busy pumpkin patching.
Oh yeah, that was really recent. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Did you get my present? I mailed it to you.
Your presence is my present.
Oh, that was nice. Anyway.
UND football. What a challenge they got this weekend.
They've kind of played themselves into an interesting situation right now. UND falling on the road again. They still haven't won a road game this season, losing to Indiana State in Terre Haute. So they're in a really tough spot right now. I think 5-4 on the season.
Nothing like a must-win against the Jackrabbits.
Right. And we were talking this final stretch of games. They had 2 games on the road, one against Indiana State, one against Illinois State, and then their 2 games at home are against 2 of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country, South Dakota State and South Dakota. Depending on which poll you look at, those are 2 of the top 4 teams in the country. So they host South Dakota State this weekend. South Dakota State's one of the few teams to earn a win over this UND squad in the Alara Center. So we'll see, quite frankly. But they gave themselves a tough road. And we talked about how they had to win this Indiana State game on the road, which we thought that they would be able to do.
Handle it easily.
Indiana State having a rough year. This was easily their biggest win of the year for Indiana State. And then they had to win that one and at Illinois State because those South Dakota games are a very tough
and
test.
These are, it's just crazy because the team's so much better at home, but like those are 2 road losses that they needed and they let slip away.
Right. And home field advantage takes you a long way. It only takes you so far against South Dakota State and South Dakota.
Yeah.
Now the playoffs were looking rough before that because they had to win 3 out of those 4 games. They just lost the first test on the road there to Indiana State. So now whether or not you're even thinking of a playoff berth is up for debate.
Yeah.
The Valley might only get 3 teams in the playoff this year with how things are looking in the conference right now. NDSU, South Dakota State, and South Dakota have really separated themselves from the rest of the Missouri Valley, and they're ranked in the top 5 nationally. So they were in the top 4 in the playoff ranking that came out last week. So those might be the only playoff teams that the Valley gets, and that's such a weird spot to be in because I think the Big Sky's not going to get very many either. Montana State, Montana, probably, and Idaho. Those are the big ones that are definitely going to get seeded, but the rest of them, we don't know what's going to happen here.
And after those couple South Dakota games, you got Illinois State on the road, and they're number 18 right now. So it is just kind of this, if UND makes the playoffs, they deserve to make it because it would require them pretty much winning out or at least beating the 2 Dakota schools.
Right, which it's a tough test. And yeah, like you said, this is they're going to have to earn that spot for sure. They played themselves in a tough position. We've asked at the press conferences kind of what happens on the road. And no one really seems to have an answer about what is so different about this team on the road. And it's really the defensive end of it. The defensive side of the UND football team, when they're on the road, I don't know if it's a communication issue, possibly just trying to get the communication aspect down on the road, but the defense seems to suffer really heavily on the road, and no one seems to have an answer for why that is. But, they're undefeated in the Alara Center. They haven't won a game on the road, and one of those things is going to have to overcome the other as we move ahead here. But what started as a really promising, kind of surprising year for me personally, has really fallen since the North Dakota State game has really taken a deep
and you wonder if
UND.
That just took the wind out of their sails or what. But I mean,
they bounced back really well against Northern Iowa.
Yeah.
Northern Iowa is not bad. Northern Iowa is they're good for their record. But Youngstown State and Indiana State are both
close
beatable
losses,
teams.
but you're coming up on the short end of the stick, and it's that's just no matter the level of football, it's extremely rare. If you can't win on the road, you're not gonna.
And as somebody who who played at high school and college, the losses that stick in you the worst are the ones against a team that you know you had a shot to beat. Youngstown State and Indiana State are both very beatable opponents for UND. We've seen UND take care of business against better teams this year. I know that those losses hurt, but they have to shake it off in a big way to keep their season alive.
Literally undefeated at home.
Yeah.
Haven't won on the road. It's just hard to wrap your mind around.
2 completely different teams. I've personally never seen anything like this, and so it's interesting to watch this happen this year. But yeah, I think the Valley is very top-heavy this year, which is rare. But thankfully, one of those teams in our area is at the top of that. So.
Yeah, so we will see. Let's get into some hoops. I can't believe it's back, but it is. I'm going to play some video and talk to me about NDSU men's basketball.
Yeah, we were at their regular season opener against Jamestown, playing a future NSIC program. After they beat MSUM. Jakari White had himself a day, looking like the star of this team so far. He had 22 points on the day. Also contributing with double digits were Tajavis Miller. Tajavis doing that in 22 minutes as well. A couple of freshmen put on a pretty impressive performance. Annie Stefanowicz and Trayson Anderson. And that was them actually right there connecting with each other for that slam. But Stefanowicz with 25 minutes on the day. Mason Miller, another new face, 18, shot 50% from the field, had an 11-point day. So this team's still kind of trying to figure out their dynamic playing alongside each other. We know who to look for as far as their playmakers are going to be. It's going to be Tajavis Miller. It's going to be Jakari White. It's going to be Noah Feddersen, as we saw there. But getting these roles ironed out and getting minutes alongside each other is the biggest thing. And getting the new faces as involved as they have so early, that's one thing that Richmond mentioned in both the exhibition game against MSUM and the season opener against Jamestown, is just getting these guys out there in different combos and kind of seeing what works together. And he said he's going to have a hard time getting Mason Miller off the floor, and that kid's going to be putting on quite a bit of a show this season. He's just such a good glue piece already, and he's fit in so well. A really good facilitator, which is exactly what this roster needs. And so Jackson Money, I wanted to mention that since I saw him. He was out for this season opener.
Okay.
We might see him tonight as they're back in action again, but I'll report that.
Did you see much Damari Wheeler-Thomas?
Did not see much Damari Wheeler-Thomas. He might have been out as well.
Okay.
Yeah, he logged 0 minutes.
Okay.
So they might still be saving those guys, trying to get the young guys on the floor a little bit as things kind of progress through this early part of the year. But number 12 is who you're looking for. But Jeremiah Burke also. He has made some incredible plays already in the couple games they've had this season. But yeah, just wanted to just talk about Mason Miller, just as much of a facilitator as he is. Transfer out of Indiana State, so we've seen him a little bit. That's kind of a piece.
That Indiana State team was super good last year.
They were very good.
That was the team most people were like the most upset about, that they didn't make the dance.
And that was I forgot about that until right now. But no, that was a massive deal that they weren't involved in the tournament with 1,000 teams in it. They couldn't make room for Indiana State, but I digress. I kind of feel like that's something that this group, and you may agree or disagree with me on this one, I feel like that was something that this group was missing, was kind of something to feed these pieces a little bit better and help move the ball effectively down the floor.
Yeah, well, it is so much different than last year. I loved Bowden Skunberg.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to continue.
See him tonight, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to kind of see what he does this last year of his college eligibility. I was a little disappointed just because I feel like he was such an emotional, one of those guys who just like gets people fired up.
Yeah, he got things rolling every time he checked in, for sure.
Spiritual leader, if you will.
Yeah.
But you know what? Jakari White, since he's burst onto the scene, every single year I see him take a step forward. And the athleticism and the ability to shoot from deep, I wonder if he's in for a special year, and I'm excited to see what those guards can do in that backcourt. So we'll see. But, Devin, I'm just kind of like, it's a big wait and see year for me for NDSU basketball because it is just wildly different. And I had my finger on the panic button when people were leaving in the transfer portal. Everybody left.
They lost a starting lineup worth of players as soon as the season came to an end last year.
Like immediately.
Yeah, and so they've reloaded well, and the pieces that they've been able to retain. Noah Feddersen is special. He's obviously young. Damari Wheeler-Thomas, Derek Dissett. We haven't got to see much of him through this preseason period either, but
we sure saw a lot of him when he was in high school.
Too much actually. He kept scoring against the East teams, but No, we're still gonna have to wait and see how this roster looks once they're all up to full speed and kind of get those on-floor combinations figured out. But I think by the start of league play, that's kind of when we'll have things ironed out and we'll know more of what to expect there. So exciting times at North Dakota State. And yeah, tonight they play host to the Illinois State Redbirds and Bowdoin Scunberg returning to town. So be sure to tune in. I wonder if future Illinois State Redbird
I was
Mason
just going to
Clabo
say,
will be in attendance.
I'm
for that
sure
one.
he will be. So that'll be an interesting one. Should we switch gears, talk about the ladies?
Yeah, we had this was in the afternoon on Monday. They tipped off at 11 a.m. and they bust in hundreds of elementary school kids for this game, and they created quite the environment. But falling to Drake in the season opener, and they had an early lead. North Dakota State was up through the majority of this game. The fourth quarter just kind of belonged to Drake, and so they still have to work on who's going to be their main scoring threat in this one. We really didn't see, as you could see through the highlights here even, they spread the ball around quite a bit. I kind of thought that Abby Draper and Abby Schulte would be kind of the main scorers, but there was a lot from number one, I forgot her name, Molly Lenz. She scored quite a bit as well. There's Australian Leah McKenzie draining the three. So, I mean, Abby Graham still. Abby Graham also looks like she put on about 15 pounds of muscle, by the way.
Okay.
She was jacked on Monday. So.
Well, she is, like, she's already muscular.
Yeah,
so
Abby Graham's a beast, and so I'm excited to see what she does as well. But, yeah, there's a lot of openness kind of on this roster this year, and they have to replace arguably two of the best women's basketball players I've ever seen. So that's no easy task. You had Elle Evans, one of the best scorers I've ever seen, and then Heaven Hamling, who became NDSU's Division I leading scorer.
she was like, the comp for me is like literally Kristaps Porzingis
Yeah,
of the
that's
Summit
fair.
League. You know,
That's fair.
She was taller than most people. She blocked everything.
Shot insanely well.
Yeah, one of the best shooters. And talk about a huge jump for her going to
Right.
Kansas. It
Yeah.
says everything you need to say. I kind of look at the roster and I forgot how many good freshmen they have
They're very
or
young.
had last year. And now there's a lot of good sophomores in Kraswinski, West Fargo's Mariley Simon, Avery Coonan, Taryn Hamling. There's a lot of people on this roster I feel like can take a step forward. I've always loved Abby Graham's game.
Yes, yeah.
And she is going to be able to, I feel like, be just that irritant.
Yeah,
you know,
what she was excelling in on Monday. She was doing that very well. Mariley Simon was playing. She kind of has. She's coming off the bench right now, and she kind of. I don't want to bring it back to hockey. She really has like a hockey goon kind of role on this team
Okay.
right now. Mariley Simon is the muscle.
You know
on
what
this
my
roster
comp
right
is for Mariley? I'm going to go with Bill Lambier.
That's fair.
I'm going
Yeah.
back to the Wayback Machine because she's a bit of an enforcer, but people forget that Bill Lambier was also a really good passer and shooter. Elite rebounder. Mariley, you saw her start to get used to the speed and physicality of the college game, and then she really became a super important cog in the machine that NDSU women's basketball was last year.
And she plays so tenaciously defensively.
Yeah.
That's massive in the
She
Summit
gets up in
League.
your face.
Yeah, and she's not afraid to either.
Yeah.
And, you know, at 6'1", she's one of the bigger players in the Summit League, and they have some good size up front.
Yeah.
Abby Draper, Mariley Simon, both taller. Kraswinski's also a little bit taller.
Yep.
5'11", 6 footish. I would call her 6 foot.
And Schulte, a lot of versatility, having a 5'10", they call her a guard. I call her a point forward
Yeah.
with the things she can do.
When I was talking to, I talked to the team last week before the season opener. Abby Schulte kind of moving away from the point guard role, from the facilitator role, I guess, to more of a weapon role. And then Coach Collins telling us that he really likes what his 4s and 5s can do offensively. And so we're going to see a lot of their offense come from up front, which
I love that.
I like it too. However, this is a team that kind of has lived and died by the 3 since we've been here, because Heaven and Elle could both drain it from anywhere on the court. And so
Seems like it's going to be a versatile team because you got all those bigs that can handle the rock.
right. That was one thing that was missing, though, I will say. Towards the end of it, when they were trailing Drake, I didn't expect anybody to be stepping up to make that late 3-point shot that you might.
Yeah, and that was where you have your Heaven Hamling
Right.
and
And so
Evans.
someone's going to find that role. But we just got to kind of wait and see where it goes. So basketball season, we're hip deep in it right now. UND as well, they were in action too. Well, the men were. The women tried to play, and then the electricity stopped working at Youngstown State's arena, and so they weren't able to play that game.
That's tough. It's a tough break.
And the UND men falling to a Mountain West team, funnily enough. Colorado State, a Mountain West team for right now, future Pac-12 power. Colorado State falling in that one by a score of 82-56. Trey Eaglestaff, he's going by Trey Eaglestaff now.
Okay.
I learned that the hard way, by the way. I said Trayson, and then everyone else told me Trey. 12-point day for Trey. Meyer Panoam, relative of Alaska's own Bentu Panoam, he finished with 10 points as well. So that's probably a good indicator of where both of them shot. Well, Eaglestaff went 5 of 9 from the field, and then Panoam went 4 of 10. So not the best shooting that you may see, but again, they're playing a Power 4 team. You kind of got to just kind of get your shots up in that regard, but it's early.
Drawing a blank, who was the big transfer? They lost the guy who went to Cal.
BJ Omot.
BJ Omot.
Yeah,
So
BJ Omot's in Cal.
I think he was their best player last year, but the thing is, like, I think this team can stay with it just because they were super duper deep last year.
Yeah, and even looking down, Amar Kaluovic is a preseason All Summit League player. Dang Meyer, I expect him to have quite the little breakout year as well. Eli King is there. Eli King put up big shots for them last year too.
Kahulovic was a really nice player.
Yeah. So I mean, we're not going to see these guys break out against a Power 4 team this early in the season, or against a mid-major team like Colorado State this early in the season. But we'll see what happens as we get closer to league play. Can we look at their schedule real fast? I just kinda wanna
Absolutely.
look at that real quickly before we move on here. Yeah, they're at UTSA next. They really like this tough. They take kind of the same approach that the UND hockey team does with the tough preseason schedule or before conference play, and then a very fun one playing Dickinson State in Bismarck for the Capital City Classic. That's
How
gonna be
about
very
it?
fun.
Okay.
So, shout out to the Dickinson State Blue Hawks as well.
Notre Dame and South Bend. That's a tough
also
one.
tough. Yeah. Their first home game is until the 14th. They're hosting Utah Valley at a noon tip-off. Get excited.
Okay. So you got Utah Valley followed by Notre Dame.
Yes.
So those are two very different teams.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Loyola Marymount, Bethune-Cookman. Okay. Fun little out-of-conference schedule.
The big one, if you scroll down a little bit, December 18th.
Whoa.
Yeah, hosting the Alabama team
Led by
Grant
Grant
Nelson. So that'll be exciting. We're definitely going up north for that one.
Yeah, I
for sure.
might have to get tickets for that one.
Speaking of up north, I should get Eric in here so you guys can start talking about hockey soon.
I was just going to say, well, let's get to a little UND women's basketball
Yes,
to
yeah.
wrap up before we get talking to Eric. This is another team where I just wonder a lot about the identity, similar to NDSU women's basketball, losing their best player in program history, and now what's it going to even look like?
Well, they have a lot of young pieces, and that's obviously going to help. We're still waiting to see the identity of this one, and I know I kind of sound like a broken record here, but that's kind of where we're at right now. There are some familiar names, of course, Kaya Hurst back as well. So,
Kira Pemberton was a killer last year.
right, and so there's some familiar names, but and Rakaya Beal, but then you still got to replace the production of one of the best players we've ever seen, which is a very familiar story here. I'm excited to see some of the local aspects of this because they have a couple local products that I want to see how they turn out. Jossie Schiller, obviously.
Shill the thrill.
Chill the thrill. I like that. The reigning Miss Basketball out of Grand Forks, Red River. I kind of see her. I see her as the heir apparent to Casey Baravich.
Absolutely.
Eventually,
Yeah.
I don't know how quickly they're going to get her in there, but
I think she's going to be really good right away. I don't think she's going to be like necessarily all conference,
Right.
but I think she's going to. I wouldn't be surprised if she's the best player on the year on the team as a freshman, and that's not a knock to anyone on the team. She's that good.
very talented. And then Walker Demers, they got her back out of South Dakota. She originally played for the Coyotes for her junior career out of
And that
Grafton,
could be a
North Dakota.
spoiler for USD.
Because she's from Grafton. I get it. Some height there, 6'1".
Yeah. And they needed that last year. They were lacking.
Big presence.
They
up
weren't
front.
lacking height, but they were lacking quality bigs.
Well, a presence up front.
Yeah.
That's what UND women's basketball has needed, at least since I've been here. So, yeah, no, we haven't got to see him in action yet because Youngstown State didn't pay their light bill or something to that effect, but
That's a tough
the
look.
lights didn't come on.
Yeah,
So
they should have to take a L for that.
No,
in
it
my
was
opinion.
a power failure at the arena. I'm sure they paid their bills on time. But so they're going to be at home on November 18th against Eastern Illinois, and then they'll also be playing Dickinson State in Bismarck on November 12th. So
Got some fun
gonna
matchups.
be
Montana will
hitting
be a
up
good one.
Our friends out west, if you're watching this, Luke Gamble, I'd like some highlights, please, from that. Thank you.
You heard him, Luke.
Yep.
All right.
No, excited for those. But yeah, if we want to, I'm going to do the hot tag like wrestling style and bring our hockey expert Eric Moon in here so you guys can talk a little bit about hockey. And I'm going to run to.
All right, come on in, Eric. We're doing this
we're doing it live.
We're doing it live.
I'm going to run to the NDSU campus for some playoff soccer. Stay tuned to the Red Zone tonight for highlights.
Yes.
And so Eric is switching his microphone just outside of camera here. This is live TV, folks. Live streaming anyway.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Have fun.
I'm gonna do this slightly off camera.
And so
Just in case. Nope.
Eric's getting mic'd up
Absolutely
right now,
not.
just off camera, and he's getting ready to slide in. And Eric and I talking UND hockey. And so Eric, my man, the Moon Man.
How we doing?
Good, good.
to see
Thank
ya.
you for joining me.
course.
Talking UND hockey to wrap up this edition of Checking the Score. And I got to start with where they left off. I was disappointed last weekend.
Yeah, that was an uphill battle, though.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. They're battling a lot of injuries right now. And here's the bottom line we got from the press conference yesterday. Almost everybody who was out last weekend will be out again.
Oh, wow.
So that's the bad news. The
Okay.
good news is the one player they get back is a huge piece, and that's Cameron Berg.
Oh, yeah.
So Cameron Berg,
Absolutely.
the top line center, huge part of that power play, and a huge scoring threat whenever he's on the ice.
And the local
Preseason
kid.
all NCHC
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
He's a guy they missed a lot, especially against Cornell, because Cornell is a big, experienced team, very good defensively. That's the kind of matchup Cameron Berg thrives in,
Mm-hmm.
and they were missing that a lot at Cornell last week. And so having it back for the start of conference play will be huge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, they still got, I think even if with guys out, the team's so deep. But, yeah, when you get into conference play, I feel like any UND hockey fan is just really hoping they can get healthy
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, they have the depth. That's something the guys talked about yesterday, and they've talked about quite a bit this year already. This is a deep roster,
Yeah.
as you said. So there are a lot of guys that can fill in. Defensively is where they've been hit the hardest. They don't have a lot of upperclassmen defensively, so having lost Bennett Zamolik since he's only played in the Providence game, so he's been out for a while. They've been very young defensively everywhere. They were actually playing all underclassmen until the last game against Cornell when they put Dane Montgomery back on defense. So Dane Montgomery's really stepping up right now. He's a Swiss Army knife,
Wow, no
as
kidding.
Dylan James called him. He could play forward, he could play defense, and he's playing defense right now. He will again this weekend at UMD. But it's a young group of defensemen that's been hit hard because out of the 4 skaters that are going to be out this weekend, 3 of them are defensemen.
Oof,
So that's
tough,
but they're,
especially up in that barn.
Yeah, but when I asked Brad Berry about that defensive group yesterday, he said, "Well, you know, they're growing in this role. There have been some positives, there have been some negatives, but one thing for sure is that as we've seen, the best thing for the young guys is to get experience, to get
Yeah.
that playing time. And it shows the depth of this team as well."
Well, I was just going to say, like, it's about you got to make the tournament, but it's how good you are when you get into the tournament. It doesn't matter so much. You don't want to get into a situation like they were a few years ago where they were so bad at the beginning of the year that they played themselves out and then had to play themselves back in. That being said, if you can get some of these players who are forced to play bigger minutes and evolve their roles, if you can build them as hockey players right now, you can reap the benefits later down the year.
Yeah, and let's. This is the last thing we'll say about the Cornell series. Let's give Cornell their due
Give
here.
them their flowers.
Cornell is a really good team. They moved up to, I believe, 6 in the poll this week. That's a really
Yep.
good team and a much more difficult matchup than BU was.
Yeah.
For North Dakota.
That's
and
fair.
Part of that, of course, was playing BU at home versus facing Cornell on the road. Cornell's a much tougher team, I think, to face because the stark contrast there is that BU is a pretty young team, ton of skill there, but Cornell is just big, heavy, experienced, and they know how to win. If you give them a 2-goal lead, forget it. North Dakota did come back from a 2-goal deficit on Saturday, so that was a really good fight, but they couldn't hold on to it. But again, that's the kind of team where you don't want to go down 2 against Cornell.
No, you don't want to go down 2 against anybody. But yeah, Cornell looks like they're the real deal, and it's interesting because we talked about like, hey, what's this team even going to look like? Is there going to be some rust? Nope, they're ready.
Yeah,
We're
ready
very
to go.
much ready.
And that shows the veteran leadership of that team. But North Dakota has a lot of veteran leadership as well. And again, this is a pretty this is some early season adversity for this team, especially after getting through that stretch of the first 7 games of the year, 4 of them against top 10 opponents.
Now-
It's a tough stretch, but they say it has prepared them for conference play. And again, I'm going to go back to what Louis Jamerick said a couple of weeks ago. It's playoff hockey the whole season for UND with the schedule that they have.
Love that. And Duluth coming off 2 straight wins against Stonehill College.
Yeah.
That was way back in October 25th and 26th.
Yeah, just 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah. So they haven't played in a while.
Yeah.
Back in their home barn. What does UND have to do well to? I think that UND needs a sweep, not just. I'm calling it. They don't just. You got to sweep them here. You got Denver coming up. This is where you're riding into this matchup with 3 straight losses. This is where you get a sweep and you get your confidence up before you take on the one team in the nation who I expect to still be holding that come not this weekend but the following.
Well, and their approach, I think, is not. They want to win both games, but
But
their approach
one
is
game
about
at a time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one game at a time and playing the best they can right now.
Coach
with
talk,
with who
coach
they
talk.
got.
But yeah, no, you are right. Yeah, it does. It always
Yeah.
is one game at a time.
But when you think about Minnesota Duluth, both these teams are 3 and 4 to start the season.
Yep.
But North Dakota's schedule has been much more difficult.
gauntlet.
If you look through
Yeah.
UMD's entire schedule here, Stonehill College, I don't even know where Stonehill College is.
I
if
couldn't
I'm being
tell
honest
you.
with you, and I should know. But you have Manitoba in there in exhibition. You have Bemidji State. Give Bemidji State their credit. They beat Minnesota State over the weekend on Friday night. UMass Lowell, that was a split. And then losing twice against Minnesota, the second game was a beatdown. That's probably their most difficult opponent right now. Minnesota. moving
Credit
up
though,
to
they
3.
scored 5 against Minnesota October
on
18th.
Friday night.
Yeah.
Then they lost 5-1.
Yeah.
But UND knows what to expect. That's the good thing about playing a conference foe like Minnesota Duluth and Duluth. They know what to expect. That's something Dylan James talked about yesterday, especially for these returning guys. They know how to play in Duluth, and last year was good for North Dakota. They won all 4 matchups, so they hope they can replicate kind of that success this year as well.
Very good. Anything else you want to get into before you guys get back to grinding in the sports office?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the goalie TJ Semptenfelter.
Okay.
He's one of the
and
goalies
he's
for
been
UND.
nice. He
Yeah,
impressed
tough
me.
weekend against Cornell.
Yeah.
He got pulled very early in that game. Wasn't necessarily his fault. That's usually the case when goalies get pulled a lot of times. Maybe sometimes the team in front of them, just a flat start, that kind of thing. But on Valley News Live at 6 in about, I'll say more than 3 hours at this point, but the show starts in less than 3 hours. We've got a story coming up on TJ and his path to Grand Forks because it's quite the winding cross-country path for him. He actually started at Northeastern as a freshman in 2021-22, was a backup to Devin Levi. And if you're familiar with Devin Levi, he is now a goalie with the Buffalo Sabres.
Okay.
So NHL caliber goalie right there. Learned a lot from Devin Levi. Now then he went to Arizona State for 2 years and really became a huge piece to their success.
For
the
a
last
really good team.
2 years, ranks top 2 in quite a few categories in Sun Devil hockey history.
Okay.
Sun
And
Devil
that's a very
NCAA history.
short history
Yeah.
to be fair, because
it's
they
short,
became
but
they
it's
were a
almost
club
10
team
years
until I think they just stopped being a club team within the last 10
Yeah,
years.
it's almost 10 years now, Sun Devil hockey history, and the only guy he ranks behind in a lot of categories is Joey Decord,
Okay.
goalie with the Seattle
And
Kraken now.
you got to really give Sun Devils, for especially being a desert team. I
Mm-hmm.
used to joke like a team in a desert shouldn't have a hockey team. That's all
That's
tongue in
actually a
cheek.
terrific hockey market, even after, all the Coyotes stuff is
Yeah.
regardless of how good of a hockey market
Well,
Tempe and Phoenix and that entire area is.
all jokes aside, they have built a really good program at light speed.
Yeah, and TJ was a big part of it the last 2 years. Now he's here at North Dakota, and in the story we talk about his journey to North Dakota and how much he loves playing here.
Oh, that's
Now
awesome.
picking North Dakota for his final season, and UND kind of getting on his radar too in an interesting way. With
Interesting, okay.
Arizona State playing North Dakota
In the Vegas game?
In the Vegas game in October 2022.
And I was shocked at the outcome of that one.
Yeah, that was a pretty incredible outcome, but that was also 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, and was he the starting goalie in that?
He was. He got the win in that game.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he noticed the sea of green right away, as he says.
So he's got January 10th, January 11th circled up when they go
he's
back to
going to
Tempe.
be. He called it a business trip, but he's going to be really excited for that series.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to the story. Thank you very much, my friend.
Of course. Thank you.
Always a pleasure and plenty to look forward to. Before I let you go, what are you most excited for this weekend, just as far as your coverage goes?
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on UND hockey this weekend, but I'm really excited for some of the high school football.
Okay.
I get to go out to Central Cass and Kindred
Ooh.
on Saturday afternoon, high noon showdown.
Oh, my
at Kindred.
goodness.
I got to be at in Castleton for that first match of the regular season. Obviously, it was kind of a wide margin there in that game, but Kindred, Central Cass, those games are always fun to cover with,
Always.
with an amazing atmosphere. Got some of that as well, and probably going to stop by MSU Moorhead as well.
Very
to
good.
face Bemidji State. Good chance to see a couple of good teams face off in Minnesota there.
Awesome. Well, a lot to look forward to, so make sure you're tuning in all weekend for Eric's sports coverage. Thank you guys so much for checking the score with us. A long episode, a double dipper, if you will, with Eric and Devin both swinging by the studio. Thank you to
All right. Thank
you,
you.
and thank you to Devin. And thank you all for watching. Have a great